There's nothing new that will really come out of President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address tomorrow. And this is a view of the former Gauteng Premier and COSATU General Secretary Mbhazima Shilowa in a scathing opinion piece. Shilowa saying it's highly unlikely that the President will announce solutions for the country's long list of challenges, such as high unemployment, the rate of crime, corruption, worsening service delivery. Well, Mr. Shilowa is here to answer for himself as to why he's putting a dampener on the President's speech before he even tables it. Mr. Shilowa, good morning to you, and thank you very much for your time. A very interesting piece you've written, and I think if anyone really wants to have a look at some of what you have had to say, they can go to News 24 to look up that. But let's begin the conversation with why you are of the view that if anyone can be accused of squandering goodwill, it is President Cyril Ramaphosa. Why that view? Because it is part and parcel of where you are going in this piece.
Yes, good morning, Xoli, and good morning to all those who are watching. Well, it is not just my view. I think in 2018, when the President went into the podium and spoke about Tumamina, and then after the 2019 elections, spelled out a program of action to reverse years of state capture, to put in place programs for jobs, growing the economy, and all of those things. Even people who at that time were not planning to vote for the ANC, let alone vote, went out, voted for the ANC because they thought, here is Mr. Ramaphosa, we like what he's saying. You would remember the many, opinion pieces written by many people in the media, the clergy, all of them really saying, here is a new dawn, here is a real deal. But I think if they are being honest and they look back, they will be able to say, all of those periods were squandered. Some because of no action from his side, others because of the socio-economic conditions that came with the COVID. But we're not the only country that was beset with COVID. Many other countries that were also beset with COVID have been able to turn their situations around. Their economy is growing better, and jobs are being there. I mean, we can't all be happy because we say, well, we are growing at, say, pre-COVID level of 1%. Yeah. We should be saying we are now at 5%, we're going to 6%, we're going for 8%. We should be able to say, we had 10 million people unemployed, we're now at 8, we're hoping to go to 6, and so forth and so forth.
And this is why you say in your piece, therefore, and I quote you now, I am tempted to once more say, Mr. President, we know the state of the nation. It is our daily reality. However, it's not what he is going to say. He's going to give us yet more hope, bullet trains, and the rest, as you will know. But there is something particular about this State of the Nation address, Mr. Shilowa, and it is something that you mentioned in your piece, that this will not only be his swan song State of the Nation address before elections, but it also will mark 30 years since the dawn of democracy. How big a significance does that bear this time around?
No, I think it is an important period for us to mark 30 years of our democracy, to take stock about how far we have gone, to indicate how far we still need to be able to go. But all I'm really saying is that it's one thing to say we are now a better country than under apartheid, and that's really true. But I don't think we can say we are anywhere closer to the promise of the Freedom Charter or the promise of the reconstruction and development program. So yes, we must celebrate. Secondly, because we are going into elections in a few months' time, I don't think the president is going to put forward any new programs. He's just going to give what, in his view, has been achieved over the 5-year period. But it's not just the president that I'm saying we need to look at. I think even the opposition, both in terms of what they expect from the state of the nation, but also what their responses are going to be, they are all going to be speaking with an eye to the elections. So it's just a platform for further politicking rather than a platform in which we really define the state of the nation and then say, what is it that we need to do? So I guess that's why, we must look forward to the celebration, the pomp and ceremony, but I don't think we should expect any new things, partly because of what I've said, but also because, they still have to launch the manifesto. So in addition to pointing out what has been achieved over 30 years, I think it will be more about why the ANC should be returned to power. And I think the responses of the opposition must likewise be taken on that basis. It's more about why it should not be returned to power, which is why I've been arguing that for voters, yes, we must listen to everything that people say, but let's vote our hopes and not our fears. Let's also look at all of these programs. I mean, to be honest, there is no program out there, and this is across all political parties, that really says, look at me, we will do something about jobs. It's all about what focus groups have been saying people want to hear, say something about jobs. But if you say, how many jobs do you plan to create, in what period, using what methods, you get no response.
Let's wrap it up, Mr. Shilowa, because I want to borrow from you the word you've used in your article, the swan song. You are using that in the article in the context of there being an election this year. That is the swan song we are talking about. But I mentioned the 30 years of democracy that we are going to be marking on the 27th of April this year. Might this be the swan song for the ANC in government or as a majority party?
Well, that's if you believe that swans are mute and never sing, and that when they sing they are on the deathbed. Well, I'm saying swan song because that's normally what it's used as a last tribute, last stage, last song in that the president will have finished his 5 years. He now has to go out and renew the mandate. But I think, all political parties should really be worried as we go into this, because everything is up in the air. Nothing is guaranteed. I can see what the polls say. This one is up, that one is down, depending on outcome and all of those. But the only poll that really is going to matter is the one that will happen when everyone goes inside that ballot box and the results are announced.
Mr. Shilowa, I'm going to get fired if you don't answer this in less than a minute.
Yes,
Yesterday, the presiding officers said a number of dignitaries have been invited, and so they went on to say the former presidents, Thabo Mbeki, Kgalema Motlanthe, and indeed former President Jacob Zuma. If all of them accept the invitation and they turn up, how do you imagine the room is going to be in that parliament?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can just imagine the sitting arrangements that they will have to try and work out. But I think people have to understand, though, that, that the President Zuma is a former president of the country. You can't use politics to exclude him in the same way that de Klerk and others were always invited. So, yes, it will add the spectacle that is expected from Parliament. And I hope the President former President Jacob Zuma attends, because then at least it can add a bit of color to what may otherwise just be pomp and ceremony.
Mr. Mbhazima Shilowa, you've lived up to expectation here. I suspect it's what many people are going to be hoping for, that the former presidents are going to all turn up. It's going to make for an interesting time indeed. Thank you very much for your time, Mbhazima Shilowa, the former Premier of Gauteng and former General Secretary of COSATU.